Early morning, 19th of November 1942. In the vast expanse of the plains to the west of Stalingrad, World War II is about to take a turn for the worse. More than 1 million Red Army soldiers are waiting for the command to cast a noose of steel round the German 6th Army. Stalin has sent his best man to lead this operation, Marshal Grigory Zhukov.
Whenever Zhukov appeared, there was bound to be a big battle. That's what the men all used to say back then. We were all aware of that. So when he showed up in our midst, we knew things would soon start. And we were right. It didn't take very long before we got orders to attack.
Marshal Grigory Zhukov has learned from his army's mistakes. After defending Russia for more than a year, the Red Army is now ready to go on the offensive. Since August, Hitler's 6th Army has been waiting at Stalingrad on the Volga. This is the longest river in Europe. It forms the boundary with Asia. More than 2,700 kilometers from Berlin, the German soldiers fear the winter and the wide open spaces, but underestimate the enemy.
Until then, the 6th Army had been used to winning every battle. So we never thought it possible that the enemy would carry out a pincer movement and surround us like that. At first, we simply couldn't believe that we'd come to the end of the line. But we had.
For many, this is a completely new experience. Instead of a quick victory, there is only the odd isolated skirmish. In November 1942, there is not much troop movement on the Volga battlefront. The ice and the freezing weather keep the soldiers busy. Most of them are still unaware of what lies ahead. But on the Russian side of the Volga, the Red Army is itching for a fight.
At first, we were worried that the big offensive attack would be postponed because of bad weather. There was thick fog. But when the moment came, we all opened fire. The Katyushas, our multiple rocket launchers, fired the first shots, and then we immediately joined in with our weapons. The preparation for battle lasted only 80 minutes. That's all the time we were given to get ready before we moved out.
The attack is launched shortly after 5:30 German time. A barrage of 3,500 guns makes the earth tremble 50 kilometers away. Zhukov's decisive battle has been well planned.
I'm telling you, that cannonade was incredible. Never before or after in my entire life have I heard anything like that. Hundreds and hundreds of heavy artillery pieces and Katyusha multiple rocket launchers were creating an inferno. We could see it because they weren't firing at us. The Russians were concentrating on the Romanian divisions immediately next to us on our flank. That was our weakest point, the Romanians.
This is all that remains of the Romanian army after the battle. Their government has sent them to take part in Hitler's plundering raid, and these Romanian soldiers have paid the highest price. But even the Soviet victors have suffered heavy losses.
The Red Army's infantrymen advanced in open formation, and their commander rode behind them on horseback. He looked just like a sheepdog driving a flock of sheep in front of him, the way he rode that horse.
The German artillery creates a bloodbath.
The commander went wild. He drew his pistol and drove the next division to the front. Since our artillery battery's first salvo had already hit home, it was no problem. I don't think many shots were fired, maybe as few as 10 rounds. And after that, they were all dead.
Zhuikov surprises the Germans with an old strategy. His tanks strike at the enemy's vulnerable rear. The Russians overrun the expanse between the Volga and the Donau. The relative strengths of the forces have changed significantly.
By the 19th of November, our army had a total of only 80 tanks in good running order. A few were being repaired and were soon ready to join in the battle. Nevertheless, at any moment in time, we had a maximum of only 100 tanks that were in operation. But the Russians had lined up 1,200 brand new T-34s against us.
The Russian Empire has unparalleled resources. In the east, behind the Ural Mountains, hundreds of new armaments factories are built, seemingly out of thin air. In just 3 days, the pincer movement succeeds as two Soviet wedge formations meet at Kalach on the Donau. Roughly 300,000 German and Romanian soldiers are immobilized at Stalingrad, trapped in a noose of steel. This is a reenactment of the moment when the two Soviet armies met, performed and filmed for propaganda purposes. The moment is full of military pathos. From the start, German soldiers caught in the unrelenting Russian noose realize they are heading for disaster. One man writes to his wife,
"My darling Magdalena, I'm writing this letter in an attempt, a final attempt to make contact with the outside world. The past couple of days were horrifying."
Many know what is in store for them.
We were scared that they would do to us exactly what we had done to hundreds and thousands of Russians up to that time during the campaign. And I'm not exaggerating the numbers. That really happened. That really was the case. We were scared of being trapped ourselves and scared of avenging Russian soldiers. At that time in the war, both sides had become completely ruthless. We knew what was going to happen to us, all right. There would be no quarter.
22nd of November 1942. While Hitler relaxes at Berchtesgaden, his fortified retreat in the Alps, his fate is being decided in the east. When he receives the bad news from the Volga, the Führer orders General Friedrich Paulus, commander of the 6th Army, to maintain his position at Stalingrad no matter what. Even the renowned Field Marshal Manstein, who is immediately ordered to the front, does not yet realize the seriousness of the situation. But other army commanders despair and advise Hitler to order Paulus to break out of the Stalingrad pocket. They nearly succeed.
One memorable evening, Hitler, Zeitzler, and Heusinger talked for hours on end. I don't know till what time, probably 2 a.m. Zeitzler urged the Führer to immediately withdraw the 6th Army. But the next morning, Göring said that the Air Force could sustain our men in Russia with supplies of at least 500 tons, and Hitler promptly decided to stick to his guns. The Germans would stay at Stalingrad.
Göring has made a crucial mistake. His Air Force mobilizes all its men, but they are unable to provide the huge amount of supplies needed at Stalingrad. The men caught in the Kessel are living on empty promises.
All kinds of rumors were going about among the soldiers at Stalingrad. But the men were placated with the comforting but irresponsible slogan, "Stick it out, the Führer will get us out."
The Luftwaffe gets food, fuel, and ammunition through to Stalingrad. but many planes are shot down. The planes also bring letters from home.
Letters from home were a link to relatives. The last and incredibly important link that gave the men, some were still mere boys, who fought far away from their loved ones, hope, and motivated them to continue fighting.
The letters written by the men caught in the Russian trap are some of the most moving documents. They give an insight into the tragedy. One officer tries to reassure his wife.
The situation is turning in our favor, but of course, all good things take time. What are our darling children up to? I can still see them standing on the stairs, waving goodbye to me. At the moment, the Russian commander seems to be making a real effort to break us down.
But the addressee suspects that the truth is much worse.
You don't write a letter full of despair to a pregnant woman. He just knew somehow that the baby would be born on his birthday, and that was what happened.
The young mother is expecting her fourth child. Her husband comes home on leave in the autumn of 1942, but by the beginning of December, he is back in Stalingrad.
When my husband left, we knew the situation was desperate. It was difficult to say goodbye because neither of us knew what the future had in store.
In wartime, this is the fate of millions. Every goodbye is a tragedy, and there is no way to escape it.
We were powerless. We couldn't say, I don't like this, this isn't for me. Those are things that are inconceivable to today's young people. We simply had to accept our fate.
Her husband has no choice. He has to return to the Kessel. On the Russian side, there is a tremendous will to win the war, fired on by the belief that socialism is superior. Ultimately, the Russian generals are all loyal to the party line.
Heroism like this is only possible in a country like ours, our Russia. Because the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics is a nation where people were shaped by men such as Lenin and Stalin. A country where the nation was forged into a unified, monolithic, and invincible collective. We never doubted our country, Mother Russia. Not for one single second. Russia is a huge country, and so many enemies have tried to defeat us in the past. But no one has ever succeeded. So we never ever had a shadow of a doubt. Not in the slightest.
The success of the first days leaves the Red Army soldiers in high spirits, and in many cases drunk as well. In several places they come across military equipment and food depots and help themselves to German supplies.
Berezovsky, which lies between Stalingrad and Galatcha. We took a German corps by surprise and confiscated their whole supply of food. Yes, of course, we drank a lot. I don't have to hide that. Drinking vodka is a Russian tradition, isn't it? The enemy had really good food. We were used to eating only mash, but there we found some real delicacies. And we even drank French wines and cognac.
Stalin is adamant that the Sixth Army has to be annihilated completely before the Germans get a chance to launch a counteroffensive. But Zhuikov knows that by now the German army is far too weak for that. He is planning something even bigger, to cut off the entire German army in the south.
I can still remember how happy I was, and all my friends and comrades, when we heard that our two fronts had joined up with each other and managed to surround the whole German Sixth Army. We all knew that they would never be able to get out of Stalingrad, no matter how much help they had from their comrades back in Germany.
For the first German captives, the war has come to an end, but that is hardly any reason to heave a sigh of relief.
Did I feel any sympathy for the German soldiers? Of course not. How could I feel sorry for them? Once, when I was on duty, wearing my weapon, I saw some German prisoners who were carrying an injured man. I told them, "You fools, you had no business coming here to Russia." The Germans were filthy, wrapped in rags. How could I feel sorry for them? Who invited them to our country?
Hatred breeds more hatred, but not only the Germans notice this as the days go by. The hardships of war also have an effect on the ordinary Red Army soldiers.
Life had no value whatsoever at the front. Today you're lying next to your friend, and tomorrow you have to bury him. After one particularly fierce attack, only 10 of our 120 men remained.
On both sides, the combatants' determination is beginning to wane. To keep up the Soviet Army's fighting power, officers enforce iron discipline and take brutal measures.
Once, we urgently needed a messenger to go to the front line. Our captain walked into our shelter and told one soldier, "You there, get dressed and go outside." The man had just returned from guard duty and had taken off his coat. "No, I'm not going," he said. "What was that?" the captain barked. I said, "No, I'm not going anywhere now." "What did you say?" "Come outside with me." The two men went outside and the captain drew his pistol. A German parabellum and said, "Are you going now?" "No, I'm not," I said. "Are you going?"
Both sides suffer terribly. A German artillery officer writes home,
At night we freeze. How much longer do we still have to sleep?